Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a wonderful music podcast where a group of friends share albums with each other, music albums, one at a time, taking turns, all sharing and exposing our horizons, sharing our tastes, all having fun. I'm Petey Rave. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my gang. We've got David Majors, aka D-Jam.
Buenos tacos, muchachos. Don't try to understand it. Just feel it.
Mm-hmm. And then all the way at the end, we've got Drew.
Hey, I'm just realizing my hair looks ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I love that I went, as if like I'm just agreeing. It's like, yes, your hair does look ridiculous.
I mean, it's fair. It actually looks like...
same, honestly.
A band
Relatable.
member from a band I might mention later. Wayne Static, as we bury the lead.
Yes. We're here to talk about music. We're here to talk about an album, and I'm the provider of the album as I finagle with my freaking camera over here. But
we're on Twitch. Don't be finagling with your anything.
Yeah. We're here to talk about an album. We're here to talk about music. I'm gonna be frozen for a moment. Just leave it alone. We're talking about an album that that caught my attention because as much as I've as Kaz and I have talked about, let's start from the beginning. Kaz and I, King Kaz, our co-host on our friend at over GM Mode, used to host a podcast called Halijuku. It was mostly a K-pop podcast, but we also talked about like J-pop and J-rock, and mainly we just talked about initially Kyary Pamyu and then a lot of baby metal, but mostly just K-pop and all that. At some point, we quit that podcast shortly before we quietly quit. We did quiet quitting before anybody else did, for our own mental health. But I can't escape roaming on AsianJunkie.com for K-pop news and others. What caught my attention there was a review for this band's latest album that just came out, and kind of what was described in the review and what was talked about there caught my attention. So I checked it out. I considered it, as a possibility for the show, and I decided, what, screw it, let's do it. And the band is NEMOPHILA. And the album is called Evolve. Japanese metalcore with a little bit of Yurufuwa, soft and fluffiness mixed in. Yeah, let's talk about expectations. David, what were you thinking when we approached this, when you were going to go into this album?
When we were going to this album, on the last episode of the Record Breakers podcast, Petey mentioned a personal favorite of mine, another Japanese metal band, Love Bites, who I, in fact, brought to this very podcast on episode 374. So I was under the impression that this would be a all-female Japanese heavy metal band, but not exactly the same as baby metal or exactly the same as Love Bites. And I pretty much got that. And I would describe NEMOPHILA as a metal band that is, for example, let's just take Love Bites. They are very power metal and thrash metal influenced, very chug, chug, chug kind of metal. Whereas NEMOPHILA have more of a hard rock, modern American metal with some sprinkles of metalcore in just for seasoning. And I would describe them as a little more focused than baby metal, but not as singularly focused as Love Bites. Baby metal can be a little all over the place, sometimes in a great way, sometimes in a not so great way. NEMOPHILA is a bit more concisely arranged than that.
Yeah. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I don't know what I would have said my expectations were, because like Love Bites was a name I recognized, but like I wasn't 100% sure of the sound. And to be honest, when I clicked on the link that you sent and like saw the album cover and saw the like makeup of the band and their style, it looked much more like late 80s, early 90s in style. And knowing the sort of Far East stuff you usually like throw at us, I was like, oh, is this going to be some like 80s, 90s like pop stuff? Like what's going on here? And I did not get that at all.
Nope. Yeah. With NEMOPHILA, it's definitely like hard rock, heavy rock, metalcore influences. There's a high energy to it. It's has a lot of moments of explosiveness, but it kind of mixes it with some really nice like melodies. And it's part of the term that they use is Yurufuwa, or Yurufuwa if you're kind of reading it there. Yurufuwa is like kind of like soft and fluffy. Oof, Yurufuwa, kind of like that. And it's the idea of like being this heavy rock band, but not sacrificing their like femininity in a way, the powerful femininity, and there you can see it in touches and it's really well constructed, really well crafted metal, hard rock, mostly hard rock, heavy rock, American like rock. But with like some nice like electronic touches. The guitar work is really nice, fun and intense. The drum work is really fun. The synths are really fun, and then like the vocals are just catch you off guard. Like one of the big things I would happen to me would be like I would just instinctively keep looking at their lineup, expecting to see a second name under vocals. Like, because Mayu's voice going from the just singing melodies to her screams is just it's impressive. It's impressive. It's an impressive like juxtaposition that just catches you off guard, and it's so like captivating the way she's able to do that. The songs are performed really well. They're performed with like a really great high energy. You get the like sense that these would be fantastic to like see live at like a big arena show, because they're really fun and anthemic, really like engaging and kind of pull you into like this energy slipstream and just kind of like take you on a ride musically and I think really effectively. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as if you were to put them, say, on a tour with Poppy right now, they would fit right in. It's very much that same dynamic of throwing a lot of hard rock and metal sort of into a pot, stirring it around, and just seeing how it tastes. And it might be to your taste. I think that a lot of this is pretty consistently good. I do think that there are times where it does get a little bit off the rails, but not much. I think everybody plays really well. I'm really interested in the drummer now. And I think that if we're going to judge this as a metal album, this is definitely more of a modern American style metal album, metal and metalcore, rather than like a classic British European thrash, new wave of British heavy metal, Iron Maiden galloping kind of metal. And if you're into that, you might enjoy this. This would probably fit in perfectly next to the likes of Spirit Box. Like, they would fit perfectly next to Spirit Box.
Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, to start, like I sort of said in the opening, they very much reminded me of some of the bands I used to listen to when I was much younger. And I've said that before with some metal we get into. But the thing that made me fall off of the metal that I was into when I was a kid, which, like your Static X's and Dead Z's and things of that nature, I wasn't super into the vocals. I wasn't super into screaming at me constantly. I sort of just, at a certain point, I couldn't take it in my head anymore. And this mixes a lot of the elements that I dug from those bands without having that all the time, which I think is fantastic. The vocals were absolutely amazing. The musicianship from top to bottom was super, super tight. I liked that it played in a couple of different milieus, so to speak. The first couple of tracks on the album are very like overdriven, crunchy, industrial, like that, like Static X sound that you would get, like that wall of sound. But then towards the middle of the pack, especially after the ballad, which we'll get into, that was the midpoint. Like after that midpoint, they started to add these like really cool synths to it, that I think was really, really great. And added, I don't want to say dancey, but kinda, like, if that makes sense, to it. But like, I think David buried the lead a little bit. The drummer was absolutely phenomenal. From like blast beats to like more groove driven stuff. Like it takes a smart drummer to build fills in a bunch of different styles and make them feel all a part of the same focus. And I think this album showed that, like, all throughout. It was nuts.
Yeah, and let's get into some of the tracks. Is like, as Drew mentioned, the way it starts off with the first couple of tracks, which is Enigma is the first track and Rise as the second track. I think I'm like, I'll group them together because they both do a good job of like introducing you to the album, and being this like intense, just take you along for the ride. These intense songs, and with a kind of Enigma mostly being just singing and melody, but in the vocals, but still being like this intense, high energy track, and then Rise introducing Mayu's like amazing screaming, which is like just that like screaming that is on key, you know, like has been like said about people like Chester Bennington, where like screaming that is actually on key and and actually fits in and is not just lost in like angriness and you know, and dissonance.
Which there's a time and a place for that.
Yeah, of course. And then, but this one just kind of fits in perfectly. And then you have something like Amatera, which shows a lot of their energy and like the contrast of like the melodies. I think this one in particular shows the contrast in the melodies of like the singing and the screaming and like the great screams, because it kind of starts off with a nice like melodic opening and it kind of shifts gears with like that just intensity in the screaming, and it's just like, and then, you know, there's just this really great breakdown. Alive I really liked because I really liked the bass intro. It was very like filter like literally filters. I'm trying to remember. It's like Jurassitol, basically. Made me think of Jurassitol. But it done really well, and it kind of goes into this really like fun, crazy electronic craziness with this like anthemic hook, which was really nice. And then Night Flight, just the synths on that just absolutely soar and just is just engaging and catchy and really fun. And then like if you like beefy breakdowns, like but like with like pretty cute vocals later on, Hammer Down is gonna give you that. The beefy breakdowns and Hammered On just kind of like really shine there. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The key tracks for me, I'm going to go completely the opposite of you guys and not mention the first two tracks at all. Except for the fact that they were kind of what I was talking about when I said kind of cut and paste metal. But track 4, Amateras, was the first song that didn't feel that way. It really felt like NEMOPHILA had found their sound. This was a very cohesive track. There was groove. It was well arranged. The transitions all made sense. Everything about this song really clicked and really worked. Track 5, Odyssey, is just a straight up power ballad. Just straight up old school rock and roll power ballad. And it's solid. And yes, if you're curious, if you listen to this album and hear this song, yes, it is in fact the ending theme for an anime. I'm not saying the name of the anime because it's gross. Track 7, Night Flight. Great instrumental section. Love the solos, love the instrumental in the second half of the song. Track 9, Hammered Down. Like Petey said, this one was big, heavy, and beefy. It was the heaviest song that did not feel all over the place. It made sense. Like I said, it was arranged well. It was constructed well. It made sense. And the final track, Yell, once again has that kind of ending theme, closing credits energy, and it's a really nice way to close the album.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, Enigma. There is some machine gun ass blast beats to start this record, and I loved it. There is like the crunch to the guitar that then immediately hits your face after, and then a soft vocal comes in like super subtle. Like it doesn't come in like super high in the mix. It comes in sort of middle of the mix, which I think was, from a production standpoint, really fucking brilliant. Odyssey, like right in the middle, just letting off the gas, I think was a really cool, smart ass move, especially when you get into the next bits. And Night Flight was, I don't know what version of DDR Night Flight is on, but I want that version. Like, because holy hell, like the synthy parts just sounded like it, and it was great. And then ending with one of the most like fist pumping, like hang out the door of your car on a sunny day ass songs that we've had in a long time. It was 73 degrees in Ohio today, which there is a lot we can say about how scary it is that it is 73 degrees in Ohio.
But we don't want this podcast to go 2 hours.
Right. But the fact that it was 73 degrees means I could put my windows down in my car and play this very loudly going down 91, and it was great. It was awesome. And like ending on like that triumph was awesome.
Yeah. Let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
My conclusion, I think that when I got this album and I started it, I was under the assumption that this was going to be kind of a palette swap of baby metal. That's what I came into this assuming. But NEMOPHILA have a bit more of a maturity to their sound. It's got more coherence, it's got more consistency in the songwriting, and it doesn't feel as disjointed. I'm totally cool with bands transitioning and weaving between genres so long as it works. And NEMOPHILA does that pretty decently. And I think the best thing for NEMOPHILA to do right now is to just continue refining their sound, because this was good, but I think they have a great album in them from hearing this. This was good, but I think they can do better. Their influences lead more towards songwriting and hooks more than metaphorical balls to the wall heavy metal concussive force like Love Bites or the insane kawaii freak show of baby metal. NEMOPHILA writes good songs with good hooks, and there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Drew, what will be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I think that David did say it right. This album is great. I think they have a classic in them. If they keep refining this, I think there are bands that, in my opinion, they have. Let me back up. I joke a lot of times that it is sometimes hard to suggest certain artists and certain albums to non-musicians when it gets too into the weeds. I also think that sometimes musicians look too far into music, so some simpler music is also sometimes hard. I'm not going to suggest most punk bands to drummers, because do-ga is not exactly exciting to most drummers. Just like Jonathan Coltrane, I'm probably not going to suggest that to most people who don't get into the weeds on music. I think this is one of those bands that if the person enjoys any bit of metal at all, whether they get super into the weeds or not, I think there's enough catchiness here. I think there's enough depth here. And I think there's enough like fun ideas that it's an easy sell to a lot more people than some other bands would be.
Yeah, I think my conclusion would be that this is a collection of really talented musicians that are making are building something really cool with this project. A couple of them are from other groups that have gathered together. I think another band that I've been like meaning to like dive into would be Saki's previous band, Mary's Blood, which I have I think at least one album in my Spotify saved, just to we're waiting to be kind of like consumed, and I'll probably get to it at some point. And you can see that like they have a focus on an idea and a motivation to make a really cool sound. This album has enough variety to really give a nice cross section of what NEMOPHILA is about, and it makes one excited to kind of get what their sound is going to be. This is a fun like hard rock album. The songs are fun. They got really great melodic hooks. There's a great energy. This is another one of those like bands that, you know, I can only imagine would be absolutely a blast to see live, especially in a big venue with a lot of people. Like, and it is a really nice sign of hopefully things to come for the band, and I'm glad I came across it, and I'm glad it kind of like it appeared to him. So thank you to Asian Junkie for letting me know about this. You know, we have our my great source for random K-pop news and reviews of songs and stuff like that. Gave me a great metal band. Well, look forward to more. But those are our thoughts on NEMOPHILA. Now we'll get to the main event of the evening, the moment you've all been waiting for, our Haiku Reviews.
And we're sorry to keep you waiting for so long.
Yeah, I know. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
My haiku. Cohesive, modern, metal, no gimmicks needed. B+ with high hopes. B+.
Drew, what is your haiku?
Nostalgia goggles. But a new band far away? Glad to do this show.
My haiku. Heavy and pretty, with energy and technique. So, Yurufuwa. And those are our thoughts on NEMOPHILA's Evolve. You can, of course, check it out on our Spotify playlists. Play Record Breakers the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Check them out both. We got Record Breakers the playlist, Record Breakers the home game. One has our episode slotted in, one does not. Go check them out. It's on our show notes at recordbreakers.fun. You can find all the links there. On that Spotify playlist, on those Spotify playlists, will be next week's record, and it's going to be provided by David. David, what have you got in store for us?
All right, Petey. I'm walking up to the mound. I've done my warm-ups. My foot is on the rubber.
I've got my scouting report ready.
All right. I'm leaning in for the first sign. Petey, what do you got for me?
I got the one inside.
I'm shaking that one off. No.
All right. Two out. Two to the outside.
Got it. Okay. We are going to continue the trend of shit we find on TikTok. And this was an artist that I came across whose little bits were just interesting enough and just different enough for me to want to bring on this podcast. I am talking about the 2023 album from artist Mitski. And the album is entitled The Land is Inhospitable, and So Are We.
Look forward to that. But that'll be next time, and this is now. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Check us out at recordbreakers.fun. Rebelli.net is the website, the overarching website. You can find us everywhere you find podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, presumably. You can just find our feed is available on our website as well. Just get our RSS feed and use your own podcast catcher. Find us on YouTube, Rebelli TV on YouTube. Catch us live at Rebelli TV on Twitch for this podcast recorded live. We also do, we're about to premiere our new campaign of Through the Tomes, where we're going to play The Hand of the Eight, courtesy of DM Dave. We got some fun in store with that. We got a cool group of really great players. It's gonna be a fun time. We've also got our GM mode, our WWE 2K23 for now GM mode, which is mostly just a millennial gripe podcast / wrestling podcast where we play my GM while we do it.
I yell sometimes.
Yes. So go check that out. Go check that out. It's gonna be fun. It's a fun time. All of that on the YouTube and on Twitch. Follow, like, share, do all the things, all the calls to action. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
I never really grasped the cute and fluffy thing.
Yeah, it was like just a nice vocals. It was just like, bye bye, annyeong, fighting.
I still don't get it.
Fuck Kelly Olynyk, and Hootaloo.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.